True crime story. Chapter 1: The Stranger in the Mini Cooper. The night that changed everything. Hove, a seaside town nestled beside the bustling city of Brighton, often feels like a place paused in time. With its Regency-era architecture, quiet green parks, and gentle waves brushing against the pebbled shoreline, it has long been seen as a haven of calm. In the summer, locals enjoy fish and chips on benches facing the sea, families walk their dogs along the promenade, and young workers head home from shifts at cafes and pubs. Life in Hove, for the most part, is predictable and safe. That's what made the events of August 5, 2024, all the more chilling. It was a warm Monday evening, just after 9 p.m. The sky still held streaks of soft pink and orange, and the streets glowed with the warm light of lampposts as the sun dipped below the horizon. The woman, a 20-year-old barista at a popular cafe off Palmyra Square, had just finished closing. She was tired, but in good spirits. She had texted her flatmate that she'd be home soon and was already planning what leftover pasta she'd reheat for dinner. Her shift had ended without incident. She'd wiped tables, stacked chairs, restocked the fridge, and walked out with the faint smell of coffee clinging to her hair and apron. She walked with one earbud in, her phone in her hand, music quietly playing. The familiar rhythm of her routine walk calmed her. She'd taken Church Road home for months now. It was well lit, lined with small shops, and typically filled with people. She knew every curve in the pavement, every corner shop and taxi stand. Nothing had ever made her feel wary. That false sense of security was about to be shattered. As she neared a quiet intersection by a row of small boutiques, a black Mini Cooper slowed beside her. At first, she hardly noticed it. The car's engine purred softly. The driver's side window rolled down. "Hey, sorry to bother you," came a male voice, smooth but slightly hoarse. "Can you help me find Kingsway?" She paused, instinctively stepping closer. The driver looked young, maybe early 20s, unshaven but cleanly dressed. He wore a dark jacket, and a silver ring glinted on his left hand as it rested casually on the steering wheel. His eyes were strangely flat, like someone watching a screen rather than a person. But in the dim streetlight, nothing seemed overtly threatening. "Yeah," she replied, pointing toward the road ahead. "It's just straight down." In a flash, everything changed. Before she could finish her sentence, the passenger door of the Mini Cooper swung open. With terrifying speed, the man lunged across the seat, grabbed her arm tightly, and yanked her into the car. The door slammed shut behind her, sealing her inside. The engine roared. The Mini Cooper surged forward. Disoriented, heart pounding, she screamed, loud, primal, panicked. Her body slammed against the seatbelt she hadn't had time to fasten. She fought back on instinct. Her knee jerked toward the gear stick, her elbow smashed against the driver's jaw. Her handbag swung wildly, knocking into the dashboard, scattering her belongings across the floor. The driver didn't say a word. His silence was worse than anything. There was no demand, no threat, no explanation. Just the cold, mechanical act of speeding down unfamiliar streets with a struggling woman beside him. "Let me out," she shouted, her voice rising to a pitch of desperation. "What do you want from me? Please, stop the car." Still no answer. The man's eyes remained locked on the road, unmoved by her screaming or her thrashing. His grip tightened as she tried to reach for the door handle. Her fingernails clawed at the window. She banged her fists against the glass, hoping, praying, someone would see. And someone did. A young couple walking along Western Road paused. They heard the scream, saw the chaos in the vehicle. The woman pointed, startled. "Did you see that?" she said to her partner. He pulled out his phone. But by the time they took a step closer, the Mini had swerved down a side street, tires screeching. Inside the car, the woman fought with everything she had left. Her breath came in sharp gasps. She felt dizzy. Her head had struck the side of the door at some point. But she refused to stop resisting. Then, suddenly, the car jolted. A sharp turn. A swerve. The man reached across her again, not to restrain her this time, but to push. The passenger door swung open. Before she had time to process what was happening, she was being shoved outward. Her body hit the edge of the seat, then the curb, then hard asphalt. Pain exploded across her shoulder and head. The air left her lungs as she tumbled onto the road, her limbs folding awkwardly beneath her. The car didn't stop. It kept driving, vanishing into the night. For a few seconds, she lay still. The world spun. A dull ringing filled her ears. Then, the pain set in, a sharp, throbbing ache radiating from her ribs and her scalp. Blood trickled down her forehead. Her clothes were torn. Her phone, still gripped tightly in one shaking hand, was cracked but intact. Then she heard voices. "Oh my God, are you okay? Don't move, just stay there." A couple who had been out walking rushed to her side. The woman kneeled beside her, pulling her coat off to place under her head. The man was already on the phone with emergency services, giving their location and describing what had just happened. She was thrown from a moving car. "She's bleeding." Yes, she's conscious, but shaking." Within minutes, the street filled with flashing blue lights. A paramedic gently asked her name as they examined her for fractures. A police officer spoke calmly but firmly, "We're going to take care of you, okay? We've got a team out looking for the car now." As the ambulance doors closed and she was lifted inside, she looked up at the streetlights overhead. Everything felt surreal, like she was floating in a nightmare that hadn't ended. But she was alive. Somehow, against the odds, she had survived. Not because her attacker showed mercy. Not because luck had protected her. But because in the moment that mattered most, she didn't freeze. She fought. She screamed. She drew attention. She never gave up. Her courage in those terrifying minutes didn't just save her life. It started something far bigger, a manhunt, a trial, a conversation across the country. What happened on that quiet Hove street would soon make headlines. But for now, lying on a stretcher, blood on her face and grit in her hands, she didn't know any of that. All she knew was that she was free. And she would never be the same again. Chapter 2: The last door she closed. The bruises on her body had begun to fade, but the scars inside, those would take much longer. It had been 9 months since that terrifying night in Hove when a stranger tried to steal more than just her freedom. 9 months since she'd been pulled into a black Mini Cooper, fought like hell, and been pushed out of a moving vehicle to survive. And now, she sat alone in a courtroom. The Old Bailey was quiet that morning. The media had swarmed the gates hours earlier, cameras flashing, lenses pointed, but inside the courtroom, there was only silence except for the occasional shuffling of papers and the low murmur of legal procedure. She sat in the second row, flanked by a police liaison officer and a trauma counselor. Her hair was shorter now, cropped close to her jaw. A scar on her right temple caught the light when she turned her head. She had asked not to testify in person. She didn't want to look into his eyes again. But she had written a statement. Her attacker sat in the dock, wearing a dark suit that did nothing to hide his hollow stare. He had finally been caught 2 weeks after the abduction, thanks in part to CCTV footage, eyewitnesses, and a small mistake, a traffic violation recorded on the very night of the kidnapping. A single parking ticket, issued to a black Mini Cooper parked outside a late-night convenience store just 20 minutes after the assault. It placed him near the scene, and eventually led detectives to his door. When the police raided his flat in Brighton, they found a chilling collection of evidence, a hidden camera disguised as a car air freshener, women's items that didn't belong to anyone in his life, and, most damning, notes written in a journal. One entry described practice runs and opportunities missed. It was clear she hadn't been a random victim. She had been selected. That realization haunted her more than anything. He had watched her. He had waited. He had planned. The prosecution laid it all out over the course of the trial, every detail of that night, every psychological evaluation, every photograph of her injuries. He never once looked remorseful. He claimed it was a misunderstanding. Claimed she got into the car willingly. Claimed she fell out. The courtroom heard her statement on the final day. It was read by a court officer, but it came in her voice. I thought I knew what fear felt like. I thought I understood the world. But nothing prepares you for the moment someone decides your life belongs to them. That night didn't end when I hit the road. It followed me home. Into every dark street. Every parked car. Every time I closed my eyes. But I'm still here. I walk the same road. I take the same bus. And every time I do, I take it back from him. He didn't win. The room had gone still. And today, May 11th, 2025, the verdict was handed down. Guilty. Kidnapping. False imprisonment. Assault. Reckless endangerment. Attempted abduction with intent to cause harm. He was sentenced to 18 years in prison with an additional 5 years on license, meaning he would be monitored even after release. The judge called it a deliberate and calculated attempt to abduct a young woman for purposes that remain unspeakable. There was no appeal. No words from the accused. Just the clang of the cell door as he was led away. Afterward, outside the courthouse, she stood beneath a grey sky. Reporters shouted questions, microphones pushed forward, but she didn't speak. She turned to the female officer beside her, Detective Sergeant Helen Crawley, and whispered, "Can we go now?" They nodded and walked toward the waiting car. In the months to come, her story would be told again and again. Podcasts. Documentaries. Newspaper columns. Some people called her a survivor. Others called her a hero. But she rejected both labels. She wasn't trying to be brave. She was just trying to live. What changed her life most wasn't the moment she escaped, or even the moment she heard the word guilty. It was the quieter moment that followed. The night she returned to Church Road, alone, for the first time. She walked past the shop front where it happened. The curb where she was pulled. The spot where she fell. She stood there for nearly 15 minutes. Cars passed. People passed. Nobody knew who she was. And then, slowly, she walked on. That night, she went home, locked the door, and cried for all she had lost, and all she had kept. Because while the man who tried to steal her future now sat behind bars, she had taken something back too: her name, her voice, her power. And that was the last door she ever had to close in fear.